Hey everybody, Chris here from the academyofworship.org, and today we are back with a video talking about tone. Now I know there are videos all over the internet and discussions all over the internet regarding tone and what tone is, where tone comes from, and I'm here to throw my hat in the ring and let you know I know where tone comes from. Do you want to know? It comes from the tone knob of your guitar or bass or other stringed instrument. All jokes aside though, we are talking about tone knobs today. And no, it is not where, quote, tone comes from. It is, however, an extremely useful tool that I see a lot of people not using. So why is it important? In the last few years, tone knobs have really kind of jumped onto my radar as something that I wasn't taking full advantage of, if at all. I mean, come on, let's face it. Most of us take the tone knob, dime it, and leave it there and don't ever think about it again. Well, I'm here to show you a few ways that the tone knob is important and why you may want to start considering it in the way that you play or sound. Now, this obviously doesn't apply to those of you who have a guitar or an instrument that doesn't have a tone knob on it. There are electric guitars that are like single volume knobs, or a bass guitar with just a volume knob, or maybe multiple volume knobs for multiple pickups. Like this guitar, for instance, has two volume knobs, one for each pickup, and a tone knob, and this fourth tone knob is actually a pickup selector, which you can split and stuff, but we're not going to be talking about that today. So first and foremost, what does a tone knob do? Maybe you've never even seen one or played with one, and I'm here to show you at least the basics of tone knobs. Well, tone knobs are literally just a way to roll off high end or add more back, depending on how you look at it. But for the sake of this entire argument and video, we're just going to call it rolling off high end, because we're going to start from 10. Most of us set it to 10 and kind of forget about it, like I said. So let's start with it all the way up. Now, with the tone knob all the way up on most guitars, that's going to be full open. It just means that no high end is being rolled off of your guitar. And in most cases, that's probably going to get you by. In fact, I would say dial in your guitar or bass or whatever tone with the tone knob all the way up. Dial in what you like to hear, because what you're going to do is use that as your starting point. So in the case of this guitar, we have this super clean tone that we are starting with. This has all of the knobs rolled up all the way to 10, including the tone knob. Here we go. Now you may notice that it's a really bright, or at least a brighter, very clean sound, and I dialed that in for a specific reason, so that you can hear the differences when we start turning the tone knob. Most of the time, I would not start with that sound, but again, for the sake of this video, we're going to start there. So let's start turning the tone knob and see what it does. So what I'm going to do is, with it all the way up, I'm just going to start backing it off and playing the same chord over and over again, and you should hear the high end or the high frequencies of the guitar start disappearing and the guitar become more mellow or warm sounding. So here we go. Here's it wide open again. Backing it down a little bit. Backing it down even more. Backing it down even more. Backing it down all the way. So there you have it. Now, that was just the bridge pickup. So we were on this pickup right here. That was with the tone knob starting to get rolled down more and more and more until it was all the way off. And you should have noticed, unless you have no high end left in your hearing, which some of us rockers kind of have that going on, you should have heard it get warmer and the high end starting to go away until it was pretty much all the way gone and it was just kind of a mushy, super warm tone. Now you can imagine how warm a guitar can possibly get with a tone knob. And in the case of a guitar like this, you can switch to your neck pickup, which gives you a warm tone just to start with. Now that's with the tone all the way up and with it just on my neck pickup. Now if we start backing the tone down now, you'll really hear it get warm. That's not usually a usable sound on your guitar, but there are instances in where you want that kind of tone. Maybe with a lead tone, you want to get something that's almost like a synthesizer. Well, if you back your tone knob all the way down, put it on your neck pickup, and play with like a really gainy sound, you're going to notice you almost have this kind of synth thing going on, and it's really, really cool. So there are times where you do want that. But for me, the important part about a tone knob is when you start using multiple guitars, or don't want to really mess with your amp or set up multiple tones already on your amp and effects and things like that, but you're switching guitars out. So let me demonstrate it with this guitar and another guitar I have that have different pickups and just sound completely different. So these are humbuckers on a Les Paul style guitar. I'm going to play one more time before we get the other guitar for reference. This is the bridge pickup, wide open, volume all the way up, tone all the way up, and we're going to hear the difference in the bass tones of these guitars. Here we go. Okay, let me switch guitars and we'll do the same test with it all the way wide open with its volume and tone knob all the way up, but different pickups. Check it out. All right, I've switched over. This is my P90 equipped guitar, which is a much brighter pickup. And we're on the bridge pickup again with the volume and tone wide open. Here we go, let's check it out. Now you should notice right off the bat that it is brighter, that it has more of a twang on the top end. Now I picked these two guitars because they're a good pairing when it comes to these two different tones. Now humbuckers, as we've covered in previous videos, are usually a warmer sounding pickup. And then when you get into single coils such as the P90 and the single coil they're on Strat style guitars, those are much brighter when you play through the same exact setup. Now I should mention that I didn't change anything on my amp settings. I just switch guitars, that's it. So again, why is a tone knob important? Well, in this instance, if I'm playing live and need to switch guitars, or maybe I love the tone of the effects and the amp that I have dialed in, then all I would do is turn the tone knob down on this guitar just a little bit to warm it up to where the settings I'm using work great. Instead of tweaking a whole bunch of knobs, I tweak one. Check it out. So here's the bright full-on sound once again. I'm just going to back the tone knob down to just above halfway, maybe in there. Now that warmed up considerably. So in this case, I'd probably bring a little bit more tone back in. So I'd turn it back up, probably split the difference a little bit. And then I would just leave it there unless I needed a different tone from this guitar without touching the amp, and I just adjust the tone knob accordingly. So that way, if I switch between this guitar and that other guitar, the tone differences aren't as striking. They don't pop out as much, which is really, really nice when you're doing things fast, or maybe you're in a recording situation. Now, bassists, we're going to get to you in another video where a tone knob comes in handy, but generally speaking, the tone knob on a bass can be really, really handy, not only for just overall tone shaping, but if you're switching between, say, fingers and a pick, you can use a tone knob to roll off the high end when you switch to a pick. So for instance, you can have a little more brightness when you're playing with your fingers, but then when you switch to a pick, you roll your tone knob down just a bit to get rid of that clicky sound, and that's, of course, that's what you're going for. But generally that would even things out on the bass and maybe not make it as prominent a sound as maybe you want. So it's not rocket science. It's not something that's new on guitar. Tone knobs are a thing that have been on guitars for a very long time. Now, I know I didn't cover every type of tone knob, like active tone knobs or active electronics in a guitar or bass. So I know there's exceptions to this rule, at least how the tone knob or volume knobs work. But generally speaking, we're talking about passive electronics, which means there's no batteries involved, and everything's just kind of plug in and go. I hope that's been helpful and maybe got you thinking about your guitar, bass, or whatever instrument that's got a tone knob on it a little bit differently. Maybe you can start discovering new tones that you never knew you had on your instrument. Now, real quick, before we head out, I wanted to thank each and every one of you for tuning in and watching these videos. It's extraordinarily humbling to see the amount of people that check this stuff out and comment and interact with me. It's awesome. But I've noticed that a lot of you are not subscribed to the channel that watch these videos, and that's even more humbling that it's a blessing to you. But I'd encourage you that if any of the things we put out, this video or other videos, is something that you find useful, it'd be great if you guys would consider subscribing to the channel. Thanks again to all of you. I hope this has been helpful. I'm going to encourage you to go twist some knobs, especially your tone knob, flip some switches, and I'll see you in the next one.